Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
All right, welcome to Kentucky's Voice. Kentucky's in Louisville's only program that deals with news and politics from a conservative perspective. We focus on Kentucky politics and also some national politics and all things in between. And today we have an awesome guest. We're excited to have him on, T.J. Roberts, who's a current House. I forgot the term for a House. Congressman, not a congressman, representative. Just why couldn't I think of that? Okay, House. He's a representative in the state house, House District 66, which is out of Boone County, and TJ, you've made a lot of waves here recently with a lot of comments about Beshear. So we want to get into that because we want to talk today about Beshear and how he's running for president and just kind of handicap that whole process. We've done several programs on that in the past, and just because every day he's in the news as one of the front runners on the Democrat side. So we need to figure out what that means for us and the country, and really show the. Yeah, and I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are about Beshear, and because most people outside of Kentucky are learning about Beshear for the first time. So we can get into that. Also, some other topics. Before we get into that, though, there's something in the news. We had a incident last night in D.C. There was a couple of Israeli embassy staff members that were basically assassinated or shot and killed by a radical pro-Palestine activist, and that is just tragic, and it's just terrible, and it's terrorism coming to these shores, and I think it's just sick. And I'm sure I think they've caught the guy, and they're gonna prosecute, of course. But any comments on that, TJ? Just in general.
Let's be very clear: violence for political purposes is not acceptable. We wholly reject that in civilized society. And my prayers are with the individuals who are the victims and their families. And this is a real tragedy that we're facing. And I hope that justice is swift and harsh for the individual who committed this act of terrorism in America.
Yeah, well said. And there seems to be just this strain of anti-Israel sentiment, anti-Semitism that's kind of popping up on all sides. There's really you can kind of look at it on both sides of the aisle these days. I see this on the far right now starting to percolate. I see it with a lot of younger voters. I think you get this moment where the boomers who generally had a more of a sympathetic view on Zionism and on Israel, they're aging out, and younger generations may not have kept up with that storyline. So I think they're more susceptible to, some of the propaganda against Israel. So it's concerning me. As somebody that's a friend of Israel, want to see this country survive. I just hate to see this time. And you can comment on that, or you don't have to. It's one of these interesting dynamics right now. But anyway, let's get into Beshear. So, I think you made a few comments a while back about Beshear that, and it, of course, I think it trolled him a bit, and he responded, and I'm glad you did that, and if you look at his track record, he has this sort of this personality that seems very empathetic, that seems very sensitive to people's needs, and he's showing up at every disaster. As soon as any sort of if it rains outside, he's doing a press conference. Hey, get ready, Kentucky! I'm going to hug you to death in case anything happens. You can get wet, and it's just and that's just shtick. And he just wants to be seen as this caring, compassionate governor. And then he wraps into that a lot of these woke social policies, and supports LGBT movements and DEI and all this stuff, and which is really, it's empathy, but it's empathy gone too far. It's toxic empathy, and so you see, so I think that's generally, and then any economic success that the state has had can really be attributed to the Republicans in the House and Senate, to you guys, and but yet he'll take credit for it, and even though he'll veto most programs and bills that come out of the House and Senate. That may help the economy. He vetoes it, but then takes credit for it when it actually works. So so there's just so much to say there. But what just summarize Bashir in your just general thoughts. I mean, how's he performed as governor, and then we can get into his presidential prospects later.
Oh, first of all, Tom, thank you for having me on. Look, Andy Bashir is a sticky-fingered tyrant who has no consideration for a constitutional republic. He has no consideration for the basic rights of Kentuckians. Andy Bashir tried to jail me and dozens of other Kentuckians for the simple crime of attending church on Resurrection Sunday. That should have been a disqualifier for his reelection in 2023. It should be a disqualifier for anything he has moving forward. But that's just the beginning of the flagrant corruption of Andy Bashir. He attempted to jail people who protested his insanity during the 2020 lockdowns. All the while, he's taking part in Black Lives Matter rallies. So he's allowing protests he agrees with, but trying to jail those who are protesting those he disagrees with. It's insane. On top of this, he's using your tax dollars to go get wined and dined by global elites over in Davos at the World Economic Forum. He vetoes every single bill that is going to make Kentucky more competitive and a greater free market state. He vetoed the process to eliminate our income tax. He vetoes tax cuts. He vetoes bills that just simply make it to where individuals cannot use tax dollars for transgender insanity. And yet he takes credit whenever we have good results, because fortunately, we only need a simple majority to override his vetoes. It's very easy. Obviously, I've been very vocal about opposing Andy Bashir's reign of terror on Kentucky. In response, he has named me in a lawsuit because I spoke on the House floor in support of a bill that reins in our administrative state. Well, I'm happy to announce today I've submitted a bill request, which is Bill Request 5, to completely eliminate Andy Bashir's ability to engage in executive branch lawmaking, to make sure that the legislature, which truly represents the overwhelming conservative majority in Kentucky, has the ability to write the law without obstructionism from the executive branch.
Yeah. I just echo your sentiments. He's a tyrant, and if you can't go to church on Sunday because of the governor's edict, and then yet the liquor store across the street is still open, Walmart is still open, but he will lock you up if you go to church, and so something about the Bashirs, they like locking up Christians.
I mean,
something about them. They just his dad did it. He does it. So these guys are something not right there. And then he'll come out and he'll talk about his faith at every chance he gets. And as I'm hugging this transgender person, as I'm hugging this drag queen, I'm going to talk to you about my faith. And my faith is going to encourage me to tell you that it's okay for you to trans your child. It's okay. And I'm going to support it because I'm a governor and I love you. And I love you. It's just so sick. It's so sick and twisted. And hopefully people will start seeing through this garbage. But anyway, yeah, tyrant.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, Andy Bashir, while he was stumping for Kamala Harris in Iowa, middle of the road state, he is holding up a baby onesie that says Pride Baby. Yeah. And that just shows how nefarious his plan is, where he brings up faith in order to just bring in the most perverted philosophies that you could imagine. Fortunately, federal courts have taken notice of this. In my case against him over the church ban, Justice Neil Gorsuch, in an opinion, described it as one of the greatest violations of civil liberties in our nation's peacetime history. So people are starting to wake up to it. The Mr. Rogers facade that he's put on, people aren't falling for it anymore, and I'm sure people are going to sadly reject it.
Yeah, we started calling him Governor Mom Jeans, but I don't think that's harsh enough. I think it needs to be something harder than that. So we'll come up with a better term. But yeah, it's sad. So And we've got about 2 minutes left, and we can talk more about the his presidential chances here in the next segment. But he's getting a lot of attention. And he kind of fits that mold of the because Democrats are looking back. They're having this Council of Trent moment where they've kind of lost everything, and they're kind of trying to restart. Okay, let's look back. What has worked for us? Okay, the last. Obama was okay, but yeah, he's still too radical. He kind of pushed the whole, race politics stuff, and we can't go back to that. Let's go back further. Let's go back to Bill Clinton. What was good about Bill Clinton? Oh, he was this Midwestern Southern, Democrat that could win in a red state. And so, who do we have in our lineup that's like, oh, Andy Bashir, red state. Oh, he Southern. Oh my gosh, and he has a strong, Republican House and Senate that he's been fighting against, and yet he still wins. So that's it. He's our next Bill Clinton, and so. Love to get your thoughts on that. I'll say this quickly. I don't think he's going to have the same appeal because very often it looks like Trump in the Trump agenda and the MAGA, Make America Great. You see my hat that I'm wearing. The MAGA agenda has basically co-opted a lot of some of the more popular policies of the Bill Clinton era. I mean, if you look at Trump, it's kind of like Bill Clinton 2.0 in a lot of ways, and some of the better, when it comes to trade and immigration, basically Bill Clinton would say the same thing that Trump's saying now. So I don't know if you're going to have that same dynamic. So anyway, we'll be back after this. So we have T.J. Roberts with us today. Really excited to talk to him. Kind of the foil of Andy Bashir and a great one of our great leaders in the state of Kentucky. We'll be right back. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, we're back to Kentucky's Voice, and we have a great guest today, T.J. Roberts, one of our House representatives in this state, House District 66 down in Boone County, and overall great MAGA enthusiast and a foil to Andy Bashir. Which there we go. Well, we switched it up. This is great. This segment we both had the MAGA hat on, and your MAGA hat is the new version. Mine's the 1.0, the smaller letters, the fonts. The 2.0 has the larger font. So you outdid me on that one. That's awesome. But anyway, so we have T.J. Roberts with us today. We're talking about Bashir, and so Bashir is, of course, we talked about his record as governor, which has been abysmal. He's a tyrant. He's using all this woke stuff and wearing it on his sleeve like he's some empathetic person that cares about you, and he even uses his religion as a reason why he's woke. I'm so religious, I'm woke. I think DEI and LGBT is the right. I think God would really want that. It's just like, no, he wasn't. He doesn't want to train your child, trains your child, Mr. Bashir, like you do, and so. But let's talk about his presidential chances, because people are looking at him as a potential Democrat candidate, Democrat challenger to the Trump agenda. And whether it's Trump for his third or fourth term, or whether it's J.D. Vance and Rubio, who knows, some Democrats got to run, and it could be Bashir. And of course, we mentioned in the last segment, I think the Democrats are looking at trying to capture that Bill Clinton moment, that Southern Democrat that can win in a red state. Maybe they can take that magic and go national with it. Well, here we have Andy Bashir winning in a red state, and so let's talk through that, TJ. What are your thoughts generally on just his chances of winning? First of all, winning the nomination because he could win the nomination and not win the national vote. But do you think he can win the Democrat nomination right now?
I think it's possible, but I think he has an uphill battle in both the nomination and the general election. One of the problems that Andy Bashir is immediately going to face is whether or not he can appease the Democrat donor base. They have gone so far left, Tom. Yeah. The mainline Democrat Party is always taking firm positions on 80-20 issues, and they're doing it in the 20% margin.
That's right.
And Andy Bashir knows that his radical leftism may appease the donors, the big Hollywood elites, the big global elites in 2028's primary, but it's going to cost him the general.
That's right.
So what I see Andy Bashir doing is the moment he steps out of the Kentucky sphere, he's going to be facing media that doesn't coddle him like a child. Mm-hmm. He's going to crumble under the pressure. I do not see him getting the nomination, although if he does, I think J.D. Vance would squarely beat him. I think that he would be one of the weakest candidates that they would have, because you would have individuals on the left mad, and you would have the moderates mad who know about his true record. So you're not going to wind up with someone, because his marketing strategy of marketing as a moderate, but then governing like a radical leftist, it's not going to work on the national stage.
It's not going to work. Yeah, people will unpack that very, very quickly, and you can just pull up all these pictures. And I should have done this before this segment, but all these pictures of him in front of the, what's that drag queen group that was came to the Capitol a year ago, so ago. You just put him in front of that, and just do a national campaign at it. So here's do you want this to be your president? Somebody that's holding up the LGBT pride flag onesie for your child, and also standing in front of all these drag queens. The woke business is behind us, thankfully. I think the broader culture has rejected it. So, and he's really embraced it. He embraced it fully, and he's still embracing it. And so, exactly right. And just look at what do Democrats on a national level even stand for, other than, well, like you said, these 80-20 policies and agendas that only 20% of the people support now. And I really can't think of a policy agenda or an issue that is popular that they champion right now, because whatever was popular, the more moderate issues, especially economically, the Trump agenda has co-opted and is now taking the lead on. So what do Democrats stand for nationally that Bashir could rally around?
Well, that's the thing, Tom. The Democrats don't have a policy platform. All they have is they hate Donald Trump, and they hate the great Americans that put him in the White House. Right. We're getting massive wins. We're getting rid of taxes on tips. We're getting rid of taxes on Social Security, taxes on overtime. I think we need to make those permanent. I think we need to add spending cuts to those, but we're getting huge wins. We're protecting the basic constitutional rights of Americans. We're unleashing the First Amendment. We're bringing in school choice at the federal level, finally. We're defunding Planned Parenthood. We're getting rid of this unbelievably big government that was entirely focused on social engineering toward the woke cultural Marxist nonsense. And thank goodness we have Trump's movement on this. And all that the Democrats have is just saying that they don't like President Trump. That narrative didn't work in 2024. It's not going to work in 2028.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and well, you said this so well. That there's the 80-20 thing. I'm going to go back to that because, like you said, the people that have the money, the big donors, they're part of that 20%, of the U.S. that support these radical agendas, and the whole woke movement, it basically was an exercise in purity in a lot of ways. It was a faith movement. It was a religious movement in a lot of ways. And so what's happened is you have a coalescing of elites around an ideology that is a quasi-religion who basically enforced purity test on everyone on that side. And so you must line up with all these values exactly right, or else you will be ostracized and you will be canceled. And so I don't think they can unpack that in even a 4 or 8 year moment. I think it's going to take a generation to unpack that out of the Democratic bloodstream, because the folks that rose to the top of the donor base and top of the power base and are the people that met those purity tests and want to make sure everybody else around them meets those purity tests, in order to get their support. And so I don't know. So I think you're right. I think you're going to have folks like Bashir that are going to be forced to bow to the left, to far left, even if their instincts may say, "Well, I'm going to lose if I do this. I just have to do this because I won't get any support." And so I think you're seeing that with Governor Newsom out there. He tried to roll back some of his things about women, men and women's sports, and he got pummeled by the left on that. And so you're right. I just think they're kind of locked into that, and outside of those agendas, I still don't know what they represent. So I don't know what would Bashir run on. I'm just going to love you to death. I'm just going to hug you to death. And if we have a national disaster, I'll show up and cry like I did in Kentucky. Is that enough to win?
It's certainly not enough to win. And Andy Bashir is going to learn some wisdom from Murray Rothbard, that it is easy to be conspicuously compassionate if others are being forced to pay the cost. And that's the entire problem that Andy Bashir is going to have, is that Americans are taxed enough, and kind words aren't enough to be the leader of the free world. And look, progressivism is fundamentally failing. I mean, progressivism is just a thinly veiled fundamentalist religion dedicated to egalitarian principles and intent on totalitarian world domination by a globalist hegemony. And the future of America, especially with young Americans like myself, I'm the second youngest lawmaker in Kentucky. We are America first. We are America only. We want to put our nation first and foremost when we are thinking about policymaking. And Andy Bashir is just going to say that he's going to invoke the progressive idea of good neighborhood, which is just tell comfortable lies, give people the hugs, and don't actually address the problems that we face, where the Make America Great Again movement, the America First movement, the Liberty movement, we're all in on making sure that we have a government that respects faith, family, and freedom. And I think that is going to be the death knell to Andy Bashir's political career.
Exactly.
He doesn't
right.
have a winning path.
He does have winning. Exactly right. Yeah, and we're also the side of truth. At the end of the day, you can, all this empathy and love without truth it can be toxic. And it could be a smothering mother. And you don't want that. You want truth. We'll be right back with more T.J. Roberts after this segment.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice, and we've got a great guest today. We have T.J. Roberts, one of the arch defenders of all things MAGA in this state and in the state house, and so we're just glad to have him on today because he's a fellow traveler. This show is very much MAGA, and as you can see with my MAGA hat and his MAGA hat, we both have MAGA hats, so that shows you our hearts. Our hearts are on our sleeves and on our heads, and so. Let's talk about state politics a bit, and as it impacts federal politics, national politics. Mitch McConnell, of course, he's been our one of our longtime senators, probably for 4 decades now, since the '80s, and many ways a great man. I still respect Mitch McConnell for what he's did through most of his career, and what he did even with the. More recently with helping overturn Roe v. Wade. I think if he didn't make some moves right when he did at the end of the Obama administration, we would not have a conservative Supreme Court, which allowed Roe v. Wade to be overturned. So no matter what you say about McConnell, hat tip there, because that was one of the most important things we could have done as the conservative movement. However, he went off the rails recently, and he got a severe case of TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. Which seems to happen a lot, TJ, with folks that get offended by Trump. They take it real personal, and they almost take a lot of their core instincts, conservative instincts, and sort of set them aside just to be against Trump in a lot of ways. And do you have any comments on that how that may have impacted McConnell?
My big concern largely is the overwhelmingly large number of individuals in Congress who are trying to subvert President Trump's agenda. And let's think about it. There are a whole lot of great things in this big, beautiful bill that we've been discussing, but there were also other issues of massive spending programs that they had to throw in order to appease the appropriators. And Americans are drowning in debt. Our GDP per capita, our debt per capita is over $100,000 right now. We need to get to that decrease in spending. And I know President Trump wants it. He established DOGE for a reason, but yet there's no DOGE cuts that's been voted on. And it's largely because of so many Republicans in name only in Congress. And it's absolutely time for a change on that area. And I think people are starting to realize that. And the 2026 primaries at the federal level, it's going to be a referendum on whether we are the party of America first or if we are still part of the uniparty establishment. Exactly
right. Yeah, and I think this state is going to say a lot about that process because of who's going to replace McConnell, and this Republican primary for that seat is going to be one of the more consequential in this decade, I think. And so let's talk about and I totally agree with you, by the way, on just the House and the Senate have been the most disappointing aspect of this current cycle of this movement, this renaissance, sort of this counter revolution that's being led by Trump. It's like he's dragging along the House and Senate, and just because they just reluctantly are going along with this, and so I guess I'm trying to give Speaker Mike Johnson and everyone benefit of the doubt, but I'm just every time I look at them, I'm just not enthused by what they're doing, and they're just, I don't know, it just seems to go along to get along kind of attitudes. But let's talk about the candidates. So who's running for that seat? Obviously, Daniel Cameron's already thrown his hat in. There's others that are talking about it. Nate Morris. We've got Andy Barr, Allison Ball, a few others. But who stands out? Well, let's talk about Daniel Cameron. What do you think about his chances of getting that seat?
Yeah, I consider Daniel to be a friend. He was a great attorney general. He was on the front lines of stopping Andy Beshear. In fact, he was the reason why I endorsed him in the governor primary in 2023 was because he entered the lawsuit to make sure that I didn't go to jail for going to church. He was one of the first statewide elected officials to actually take meaningful action to stop the lockdowns.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing.
That's
And
heroic. Yeah,
he,
absolutely.
yeah, and he has great potential. I'm going to just say this in terms of viability. No matter who the Republican nominee is, they are going to win. We are going to unite behind the Republican nominee and make sure that we get a conservative fighter in the United States Senate. I'm keeping my cards pretty close to the chest in terms of support because, one, the field is not entirely set, and it won't be set until January.
Right.
But every candidate that I have heard from has something to offer Kentucky in very big, meaningful ways.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's well said, and that's certainly a good position to have, I guess, in this point of the race. I can say this about Cameron. I do have some concerns. I mean, he lost that governor's race, and I was involved, not within the campaign itself, but I was watching it pretty closely, and there were some things that just, I think it could have been managed better. I think there were some things that could have been handled better, and so, but hey, everybody learns. You learn from your mistake, and your failures how you learn, and so maybe he can run a better campaign this time around. But anyway, so we've got people like Nate Moore. Do you know Nate Morris, or is it just a name at this point, or
I love Nate Morris.
Okay.
Guy has been a fighter for America First principles for a long time. I know that he was involved in fundraising for Rand Paul and President Trump in 2016. So I love both of those guys. I think that's a really big thing. One of the things I really love about Nate Morris is his refusal to ask for permission. That's one of the things that I did. I mean, I ran against a guy who had held some form of elected office since the year I was born, and I won by 50 points. Nate Morris has very much so impressed me. So I'm the president of Northern Kentucky Young Republicans, and we dedicated 3 months of our programming to welcoming in rumored candidates for United States Senate. We hosted Nate Morris, Andy Barr, and Daniel Cameron, and Nate Morris was the first one to say yes. He was the first one to open up to an open mic and stick around and ask questions. So there was an air of transparency that came from those events that I really, really valued from all three of those guys.
Yeah.
But it's noteworthy that he was the first one to say, yes, let's do it. Let's get a venue set up. I want to get to know these people, even though, like, at the time, I'm sure, I mean, we don't even know if he's running yet.
Yeah, right. Well said. Yeah. Gosh, that is so true. I think that's what people are looking for in candidates now. And Trump has really set the bar on this because the man's so authentic. He is who he is, and you can see it. You may not like him, but at least he's authentic, and you see exactly who he is. And the transparency is an asset. And I think politicians need to steer that direction. I think very often they're very careful. They're calculating. They need to be. They have a lot of interest to balance in their, in their lives and that sort of thing. So I get that, but the average person wants to know who you are more than almost what you believe. And so authenticity allows you to show your being. This is who I am, not so much what I want to do and what I'm going to do for you. I think if once, because I want to know, can you even execute as a person? Are you successful? Are you honest? Are you? So I'm glad to hear that about Nate because I think that's going to be a real asset. Andy, I was talking to a gentleman last week who's a big fan of Andy Barr, and so, of course he's been a congressman for quite a while and well known in the states, done great work, but I think a little bit more from the traditional wing of the Republican Party because he's been there since almost the Reagan era in a lot of ways, and of course under the McConnell umbrella of things, and so can Republicans like him or some others that came up in the McConnell machine sort of break away from the McConnell umbrella now, because that's really it's no longer being a McConnell acolyte is not an asset now, it's a hindrance. So what are your thoughts on that?
This is a difficult one because, look, I know Andy Barr was a supporter of Pete Hegseth, which is a difference from that wing as well. I don't like looking at what wing someone is from. I like looking at what they are doing right now. And I think we can clearly see loyalty to President Trump is something that all three candidates do have in common at this point. All three of the, at least majorly considered, already in or heavily rumored to be in.
Right.
So I would like to see that. I will say personnel is policy. So that's one of the top ways to know where someone's going to fall on it. Look at their past voting record, but also look at who they're bringing on to run their campaigns. Look at who they're bringing on to be involved in it, right? Are these people America first? Are these people pro liberty? Those are questions that I'm going to be asking all the candidates in the primary before I make a decision myself on who I vote for.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Yeah, exactly right. So, well, it's going to be interesting to see, and I'd love to see who you eventually endorse. That's going to influence, I think, a lot of what my thinking, because I look for candidates, or I look for politicians and leaders in our state that are unabashedly pro-Trump and are part of this new conservative populist movement, because that's just where the country is. That's where the heart of the Republican Party is, and so I listen to them first. So I'm curious to see where you land on in this, and we'll soon find out. And I agree with you. I think whoever wins this primary is probably going to win that seat. So this is the real race, is the primary. So Republicans, Kentucky, you've got a real choice in this primary, and. Good deal. I wanted to say this to the last segment, but I'm going to tease it right now. Thomas Massey. I mean, he's love him or hate him. I love him, but sometimes I'm like scratching my head about Thomas Massey. Say, what? Why would you just do that? Can't you just go along? And so, and of course, you've recently come out and endorsed Thomas Massey. And if you don't know who Thomas Massey is, he's a U.S. Congressman from northern Kentucky, and who's very well known nationally. He's kind of a libertarian firebrand, of course a Republican, but libertarian in his instincts, lines up a lot with the sort of the Rand Paul vision of the world, but has been pushing back on the Trump agenda a bit. And he will actually be the lone outlier on several votes here recently to support the Trump agenda. So I'd just love to get your thoughts on Massey. I really like the guy, but with some of his, I just have to question what is going on. And you endorse him, so I want to hear what your thoughts are, because you are definitely MAGA. So we'll be right back with T.J. Roberts, and we'll also talk about your appearance on Timcast too. We'll talk about that. We'll be back with T.J. Roberts here on Kentucky's Voice.
to Kentucky's Voice Radio online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice, and we have a great guest today. It's T.J. Roberts, a House of Representatives, a member of the. I kind of get that kind of frame there. He's a member of the Kentucky House District 66 out of Boone County, and one of the young rising stars in Republican and conservative and MAGA politics in this state. And so we're really glad to have him on. And also what really prompted me to invite you on is I saw your appearance on Timcast the other night, Timcast IRL. If you don't know who Timcast is, Tim Pool is one of the largest YouTubers out there, conservative, sort of cultural, podcasting programs there is on YouTube, and it's just a great program, and pulls in a lot of people from the MAGA world. And saw you on there. It's like, that's TJ. That's awesome. He's from Kentucky. You were talking about Bashir and everything else. I'm really just pleased to see you on there. That was awesome. And so, but we were in the last segment. Any comments on the Timcast thing before we go on to the Massey thing? Just how was your experience there? Was it cool?
It was great. The people at Timcast are amazing people who just have authentic conversations about the issues that are facing this nation and just brings on different perspectives. And I truly love getting to sit down with those guys and have these conversations and show this audience the importance of really digging into the political class and not just following their words, following their actions too.
Yeah. That's right.
It was an honor to be on that show.
Yeah, it's so
and
interesting. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. But man, his show has just done some amazing stuff. So I can't say enough about it. You're right. He'll pull on politicians and cultural figures from all different walks of life, from the high to the low, and it's just all fascinating. It's just all interesting. So I just really appreciate the whole new media world. And so anyway, okay, let's talk about Thomas Massie. So you endorsed Thomas Massie's re-election bid here, and of course, Thomas Massie is a U.S. congressman in Kentucky who is known for his libertarian politics and just great on television, just very articulate, just a strong fighter for all things conservative and libertarian. But he's come out against some of the Trump agenda, or at least not the agenda, but just some of the tactical aspects of moving the Trump agenda along. There's some bills that he was the lone voice against, the lone holdout voting against certain bills, and there's a lot of folks that are just really turned off by that. They see this as a real counter revolutionary moment where we've got a lot to lose here if this Trump administration does not succeed, because you and I just talked about the first segment. We've got politicians that are willing to lock us up for disagreeing with them. I mean, we really are at that point now. This isn't just academic. This is life and death kind of issues now, and they're willing to take your kids away, right? If you don't let your kid become a tranny, we'll take your kid away, and that's happening around this country. And so, and people like Bashir would do that. He would do that to you. And so, so when you look at the Trump agenda, and he's the vanguard of pushing back on this stuff, you want to give him all the wind in his sails he can get. And so when you see people like Massie that are doing this on principle, I get why they're raising these concerns. I get it, but is this the moment to do that when we're about to lose everything? And so the critique is there, and I agree with that critique. At the same time, love Thomas Massie, so and what he's standing for, and how articulate he is, and some of the things he said. And so, give me your best critique and your best defense of Massie.
I think Thomas Massie is a stronger fighter for President Trump's agenda than just about anyone in Congress, if we're being completely honest. When you look at why he's voting no on these bills, it's not because it contains parts of President Trump's agenda. It's because weak-kneed moderates have made the decision to water down President Trump's agenda. So let's talk about the good of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. You have the no tax on tips, you have no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, but there's one problem. They're temporary, right? President Trump wanted that to be permanent. So there's a problem. There's no DOGE cuts, which President Trump campaigned on and is actively fighting for. At all times, he is doing everything he can to protect DOGE, but Congress isn't having his back. Thomas Massie is. It has the Hearing Protection Act, which Thomas Massie is a co-sponsor of, but it also doesn't have the Short Act to allow for people to have short-barreled rifles. So so look, with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act has a lot of excellent provisions, but then there are spending programs. There's also deductions on taxes for state and local taxes, which is really just a subsidy for individuals in blue states. It's a
Right.
reward to Democrat governors for raising their taxes,
Yeah.
and we just quadrupled the cap. So now you can get up to $40,000 back
That's
on
crazy.
state and local taxes. And who's going to be paying for it? Us in Kentucky.
That's right.
So there's multiple angles to approach this, right? I respect the yes votes. I also respect the no votes. That being said, Thomas Massey isn't voting no to obstruct Trump. He's voting no to demand more of what Trump is asking for. And I think
Okay.
that's a great thing. And that's one of the top reasons why I support Thomas Massey.
No, that's a great defense. Yeah, he's trying to improve the bill and make it line up more with a more authentic Trump agenda than even the bill pretends to represent. So that's a great point. But what about people that critique him about his Israel stance? You know, right now Israel's in the news. You've got a couple of Israeli staff, embassy staff, that have been killed here in D.C. And this whole pro-Palestine, pro-Gaza movement is just, I think, way out of balance. But it's generally led by those that are on the far left, for some reason. So some reason these Marxists and these woke people align themselves with this, these fundamentalist Muslims who would, if you were an LGBT or in a Gaza, you wouldn't last very long, right? But yet you're going to wave the Gaza flag next to your pride flag. I mean, what the, get a grip, folks. But anyway, so Massey I think he's critiqued the influence that the quote unquote Israeli lobby has on U.S. politics, and how there is a I forget the PAC that's is it APAC or AAF, whatever. There's some Israeli PAC that basically not Israeli. It's a PAC that basically supports the concerns and issues of the state of Israel. That helps. That's a lobbying group that gives a lot to. To Republicans and folks that are support Israel, and so he would push back on that and said, "Listen, they have too much influence. This is a foreign government that has influence over our government, and that shouldn't be happening. They should." I kind of get it on some level, but at the same time, if we don't defend Israel, they're gone. So what are your thoughts on his stance with vis-a-vis Israel?
So the only part of what you said that I disagree with is the phrase, "If we don't defend Israel, they're gone." I think Israel is a remarkably resilient people who can absolutely stand up for themselves, especially with the Iron Dome, and especially the fundamental weakness of their adversaries. I think that they can do that. I'm not taking a position one way or another in terms of what we should be doing. But that said, back to Thomas Massey's position. If he was only singling out Israel, I could see the concern. But Thomas Massey is just consistent in his opposition to American involvement in any foreign affairs. And I think that's a legitimate position to take, right? He doesn't just vote against foreign aid to Israel. He also votes against foreign aid to Ukraine. He also votes against foreign aid to Somalia. He also votes against foreign aid to South America. He votes against all foreign aid because he thinks that America has enough problems on our own shores, right? And the thing is, you can support Israel and support its right to exist without also saying that we need to be funding it. So I think that he draws a good balance on it. I think that in terms of foreign affairs, his entire issue with AIPAC, once again, is not necessarily they're advocating for Israel. It's just that it's with a separate foreign entity, which he takes issue with all foreign entities that attempt to lobby America. So that's one of those issues, right? I don't think I think that his remarks specifically about Israel get more coverage because Israel is so fundamentally an ally of America, where Thomas Massey speaks out about Pakistan getting millions of dollars in foreign aid, no one really thinks about that because Pakistan is not an ally, right?
Right.
So that's why I think there's more controversy.
Or less
I don't
newsworthy,
think that,
or less newsworthy. I mean, they may be an
Right.
ally, but it's just so what we're giving a lot of money to South Korea, but it's not. It doesn't have a headline grabbing aspect to it that the Palestinian-Israeli conflict has had. So yeah, I get it.
correct. And that's the thing is like Thomas he votes against all foreign aid.
He's
So
consistent.
yeah.
It's okay. I
Right,
can
so-
respect that. I can respect that on some level. I just I do think though we have to take special concern towards Israel just because I think they have a vulnerability beyond most other countries. There's but I think they can take care of themselves. Most of their immediate neighbors are either no longer at war with them, at peace with them. Lebanon, maybe you have some issues with Hezbollah, but everybody else is generally have already signed peace deals, and they're quasi allies with Israel. Even the Arab states are becoming quasi allies with this Abraham Accord. So you're really just dealing with Iran and oddly enough, I think maybe Turkey. Turkey's been rattling a lot of swords at Israel, so that's going to be an interesting thing to see in the future. And Turkey's our ally as well. So we have two allies that are going to be,
And by the way, that is a problem that we have, like with NATO membership. I mean, the reality that Article 5 of NATO would require us, notwithstanding our constitutional requirement of Congress declaring war, to go to war to defend a foreign nation that is often the agitator is ridiculous.
That's right.
And we need to get out of these global foreign agreements and truly put America first.
Exactly. Let me interrupt. Just imagine if Israel went into Syria and attacked Turkish troops, we would be obligated to defend Turkey against Israel.
Right. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Israel has the right to do what it deems necessary to defend itself, and any foreign engagement that requires us to fight for a foreign interest, we should get out of. One other thing on this issue. President Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for the Abraham Accords.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's indisputable. But that Nobel Committee would never let him have that simply because of who was on that committee.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah, a bunch of woke, a bunch of left-wing globalist Europeans who do not like Trump, the Trump agenda, or Americans for that matter. Let's just get down to it. And so, okay, well, this is great. Hey, TJ, this is awesome. And I want everybody watching to follow TJ's career here. I expect some great things out of you in the future, and we're just so glad you'd come on the show, and we'd come back anytime, and let's keep the MAGA movement going in Kentucky. So, appreciate you being on. Well, you're watching.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, we're watching Kentucky's Voice. We'll be back tomorrow here on this station. Talk to you soon.